Hi everyone, in this video I want to talk about computing percent change, and here are the two problems that we'll do. And to make sure that we don't take ourselves too seriously, let's think about the fun question. What is your favorite school subject? I know everybody would say math is their primary, of course, but what's your second favorite? Okay, so percent change, yes, it's a standard on the pre-algebra part of the math section. So, things like taking percent and relating it to word problems that involve, say, discount or sales tax, or, trying to figure out by what percentage did something increase over time or decrease over time. You'll want to think of not just how do you find a percent, but what are the applications of percentages. So here's one of them. This is something that comes up in business quite often, so it's good for everybody to understand this concept. Okay, so directions would say something like find each percent change, state if it's an increase or decrease, and round to the nearest tenth, or down here it says nearest percent. Okay, so if we have 63 feet of rope, and we want to then cut that down significantly to 23 feet. The question is, by what percentage did it decrease? Now, this is commonly mistaken with a different concept, and that is, what percent of the 63 is the 23? So, but what we care about is the actual increase or decrease. Now, this is going from a larger number to a smaller number, so it's going to be a decrease. What I recommend in situations like this is that you think of this little made-up formula when you think of this. It's now minus then over then times 100. Where did this come from? Well, there are fancier ways to say the now and the then part. But for percent increase and decrease, you just want to think about what is the number now? What was the number then in the past? And we need to make sure it's in percent form, so we have to multiply the answer by 100. So, if you looked up a textbook definition of this, it would be like, they would use words like initial or original or things like that. But I think it's really hard for students to remember formulas. So what we just care about is what is the difference between the two numbers that goes up top, and then you always put it over the old number. Like, what are we comparing it to from the start? So the now number is 23. The then number is 63. Then 63. And you would multiply that by 100. Okay, so what is that? Well, 23 minus 63 is negative 40 over 63, and then times 100. This is where we want our calculator. We need it to be exact, so you definitely want a calculator. And then, so I'm getting negative 0.6349 blah, 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 times 100 is then negative 63 point what percent? Tenth. Here's tenth. So I'm going to say 0.5%. So that means that if you go from 63 feet of rope down to 23, that piece of rope at 63 feet decreased by, coincidentally, 63%, 63.5%. So now it's not asking 23 out of the 63, that would be like 37%. That it's not asking that. It's saying by which number did it decrease. So if it's negative, then you would report this as a decrease. So you would say decrease of 63.5%. Okay. The next one, now you are increasing. So 30 tons to 64 tons. This now wants you to round to the nearest percent. I chose these problems on purpose so that we could practice rounding to different place values. Okay, so now minus then over then. The now number is 64, then 30, then 30 times 100. So we care about what's the difference between the two of the numbers, and then you want to throw that over the initial number, the original, the 30. So we want 64 minus 30 is 34 divided by 30. And then times 100. Now, you may think that you did this wrong when you look at it, but you would get 113%. It's 113.33. But we want to round to the nearest percent. And yes, technically these are rounded, so we should have our approximation symbol rather than equals. It is approximately 113%, and that's a positive number. So we would have an increase of 113% as our final answer. Okay, so when the answer is positive, increase. When it's negative, it's a decrease. Just a note on that. Let's say you increase something 200%. That's the same thing as doubling it. So like if a company's, revenue increased by 200%, that would mean that it doubled over whatever time span they're talking about. So anything over 100 means that 100% would be the same amount as that original. But then if there's more, then that means that, going from 30 to 64 means that not only did you increase by another 30, but then 4 extra. So going from 30, it'd be like 30 plus another 4. So think about it like that. There's some practice problems that are very similar. Feel free to pause the video if you'd like to do these without answers. And here are the two answers. So they both are increases because they both end up being positive. One is rounded to the nearest tenth, the other is to the nearest percent, and that 215 means it more than doubled, obviously, from 20 miles to 63 miles. Okay, a quote that I would like to give you before you leave is, "I believe every human has a finite number of heartbeats. I don't intend to waste any of mine." Neil Armstrong. That is great inspiration. Okay, so I hope this video helped you in some way, and feel free to leave your answer to the fun question in the comments, and if you would like to subscribe to keep up with new videos, that would be great. Have a good day.